You're watching PEGRI TV, Rhode Island's public access channel.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to An Hour with Bob. Even though we're taping this in the afternoon, because I know the sheriff's already saying evening. What is he? He's lost it already. It is the afternoon. It's July 24th, 2019, and I just watched Mueller testifying, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. And with me today is my good friend from Bristol County House of Corrections. The sheriff is in town. Tom Hodgson, again, nice to see you, buddy.
Thanks for having me, Bob. Appreciate it. It's always good to be here.
Yeah, it's always fun to have you here. And it's funny because when I mention that I'm having you as a guest, people always come up with something. They'll ask me something about you, or can you ask him this, or does he have this? Or especially when you had, the most famous guest in recent years there, when you had the football player over there.
Yeah, we had a lot of questions about him.
Yeah. He was there how long?
He was there with us for a total of about a year and a half.
Yeah.
By the time he went upstate.
Where did he end up? In Boston, right? Before
He eventually ended up in Ludlow.
Which is where?
Up in Ludlow, Massachusetts. Susan Baranowski is the facility.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, that's where he was starting his sentence.
Yeah, because yours is a jail, right?
Well, we have a jail and a house of correction. The jail
is
for
Bedford?
pretrials, so that's in New Bedford.
Bedford.
That's actually.
I've been there with you.
Yeah, I'm surprised to let you out actually, but
And the other place, still Dartmouth.
yeah, Dartmouth.
With
But it's the
with
oldest
Zachary.
operating jail in the country. I remember that with Zachary. Yeah,
It's the oldest what?
operating jail in the country.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's been around since John Quincy Adams was president. But it's one of the
Wow.
cleanest, quietest, safest jails, which is a real tribute to our staff for the standards that they maintain. And then we have the House of Correction, which is in Dartmouth, and that opened in 1991.
Right.
And so we house also there. I built an immigration detention facility on that site, and we have a women's center there. We have the main facility in Dartmouth, the main House of Correction. These are all people that are sentenced,
Right.
primarily. And then we have a modular facility as well.
So you added a few of these after I was there then.
The building that I added was the immigration detention building, but that was
Okay.
in 2007. The others were already there in existence. The modular facility opened just around the time I took over in 1997.
Because it was before you took over that they had a lot of problems there, and you kind of straightened things out.
Well, the former sheriff, when they took over that facility in 91, it was a pretty sprawling, big facility, and they had to staff it pretty quickly and so forth. So, it's difficult to get the policies, procedures in place.
Right.
Operating procedures, all those things with the new building. And so I liken it to, someone that grows to be 7'6" and they're a sophomore in high school, for example. They're generally going to be
like your grandson.
Well, my grandson's, yeah, he's pretty tall. But
pretty big.
Yes, he is. But fortunately for him, this example doesn't apply. But when you grow so quickly to be so tall,
Right.
like 7'6", at such an early age, you generally are going to have a difficult time having your muscles work
Catch
as well
up.
as they could. They have to catch up.
Right.
So it takes a little bit longer. And so you might be someone. I had a guy who was 7'6". That's why I used that example. He
You
was a
did?
sophomore in-
7'6"?
Yeah, when I coached at the basketball camp in Washington years ago, and he was a sophomore in high school, and he could dunk the two balls on his tiptoes, but to dribble it and turn around and do it without walking was difficult because his
Motor skills were.
well, yeah, because because he grew so quickly, his muscles hadn't caught up to his growth yet.
Right.
Eventually they do, but in his case, because he grew so tall so quick, that was and so I liken that to what happens when you take over a new facility like that. Your systems don't catch up to the growth right away,
Right.
and you have to do it. So when I took over, that was going to be my challenge. I needed to be able to try to, strengthen the policies and procedures, make sure there were consistencies, make sure the standards were, meeting the national standards of operations and things. But I had a great staff, and I have a great staff who have helped us grow that to now, 22 years later, being nationally accredited twice. Our medical unit's been nationally accredited for years now, and so it's like anything else, you're shifting your culture and all that. Those challenges are big, but when you have a great staff, you can get it done.
Right. Now, so you're saying that was brand new when? 90 what?
1991. The
91
Dartmouth House
it
of
was brand
Correction,
new.
yes.
And you
then
took
my
it
ICE
over in
facility-
97?
Took over in 97, and then my Immigration Customs detention facility I built and opened in 2007.
And how is that working out for you?
It's been working great.
Yeah.
I opened it because I believe that we ought not to be shipping people all over the country and having taxpayers pay more federal dollars to fly people to other detention facilities from our region, when in fact we could hold them there. It also, for those people who are going to be deported, they would have an opportunity to have their families be there if the husband was getting deported, and the wife was staying behind with kids. There was a chance for them to be able to kind of figure out before the person got deported, what are you going to do for work, what programs are available. And I brought on a member of the immigration, we have a center for immigration in New Bedford, and the Immigrants Assistance Center. And so I pay for one person half their salary to come in every week to talk to the people who are there awaiting deportation, so they can find out what are the issues and what is your family who's going to be left behind need in the way of support or direction to workforce development or what have you. So that's how that's why I did it, because I wanted to make sure that as best we can control or minimize the dysfunction that would happen during the separation,
Sure.
but also at the same time make sure that the taxpayers aren't paying all kinds of money to ship people all over the country to holding facilities when in fact we could do it right here,
Right.
make it more cost effective.
And
that's
they're
what's
doing that, though, aren't they? Aren't they shipping people all over the place?
well, now, what's going on at the border? I just got back from the border about a month and maybe 5-6 weeks ago. And
Where were you, McAllen?
I was in McAllen, at the Rio Grande sector.
I'd love to go there. I'd love to go there. see
Well,
how
we'll
it
have to get
operates.
you down there because most Americans haven't had the opportunity to really understand it and see it. I've been down there 4 times over the course of my career as a sheriff, and I've been working on immigration reform for 21 years. But what I would tell you is the numbers coming across the border, which a lot of viewers aren't aware of, is just
Staggering.
It's unbelievable. So, for example, under the Flores Act, which is a decision that was made here in the courts in the United States, they restrict now ICE from holding any family unit more
Right.
than 20 days.
Right.
But the problem is, when that happens,
They got to put them somewhere.
well, word gets back
Right.
over the border,
Right.
behind the border, that hey, take advantage of this law.
Right.
They're only going to be able to hold you 20 days,
And they gotta
gotta
let you
release
go.
They got to
Yeah.
release you. And the people that are awaiting court hearings, who have come in illegally,
Right.
been given a summons and told you need to appear in court,
And they don't appear.
their court dates right now are out like almost 8 to 10 years. They wouldn't be, their docket wouldn't come up for 8 to 10 years.
Wow.
So these people all know that on the other side of the
Right,
border that are
sure.
sneaking in illegally. So what happens is, so you bring a child, I bring a child. We get caught. We're taken to the processing station. They can hold us for 20 days. They don't know whether the kids we have are our kids,
Right.
because they can't fingerprint kids under 14.
They cannot?
Cannot. So what happens is, so you bring that child in. You get released after 20 days.
The kid, what happens to the kid?
You take the kid with you. What if you're a pedophile? You're going to have
Exactly.
that kid in the interior of this country,
Right.
abusing that
For
child
for
nonstop,
decades.
right?
Yep.
Or maybe it is your child, but you want money. So what do? You take your child back to the border when you get released, hand them over to the drug cartel who are involved in the human trafficking.
Right.
They are going to pay you, maybe they give you $100, and now they're going to sell your child to somebody else for $500 to let them come in now as a family unit.
Right.
So they can, and that's what they've been doing.
Or even worse, sell them to a pedophile.
Well, that too, and the abuse that's going on with these kids is unbelievable. So, but the other thing that's important to know is that human trafficking and sex trafficking are out of control. Human trafficking for the cartels has become as lucrative
As the drugs, right?
In the way of money.
I've heard that.
You probably, and I'm sure the viewers have seen it, time and time again. You see it on Facebook, you see it in the newspaper. Down in Washington, D.C., I was on a Fox show, and one of the people working in the studios came up to me and said, what are you doing the show on? All the missing kids in D.C.? I said, what do you mean missing kids? Oh, yeah, there's all kinds of young kids that are missing all over Washington, D.C.
Sure.
These human traffickers are everywhere. And you'll see it time and again. These young kids missing, gone missing. You know, and they know if a kid runs away, they grab them, bring them in. And so what's happening is you've got all that going on. You've got people who are being killed by criminal illegal aliens. And this is something that most people probably don't know. I think I mentioned it to you before we went on the air. The Pew Research report just came out about 4 weeks ago. And what they revealed was...
That's astounding.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Between 2007 and 2017, Massachusetts has had the highest migration of illegal aliens than any other state in the United States.
I find that hard to believe.
It's right there in black and white.
Really?
I've seen it. Massachusetts, Maryland, and Louisiana are the three that went up. And what's really interesting is when I was down on the border, I was talking to the border chief. We were out on the Rio Grande, near the Rio Grande, and he said to me, you do know the word down here with MS-13, that vicious, violent gang? He said, the word down here amongst the MS-13 members that are coming in is go to Massachusetts and that whole New England region.
Really?
And we know that's so because they got orders from El Salvador to take over the Northeast again, get a foothold back in the Northeast.
For the drugs.
And so, I mean, you just saw the 19 that just got arrested for machete murder that was just brutal, and that's how they are. We just saw a huge bust up in Lawrence with the U.S. Attorney. U.S. Attorney Lelland ran a operation out of there, big MS-13 bust up there. I mean, so when you hear people in Congress, and this is the part I really think the viewers are probably as frustrated, and this isn't about Republicans and Democrats, right? I've been doing this for 21 years, dealing with immigration with Washington, and I've watched year after year, and I'm not saying the Democrats or the Republicans, I'm saying all of them. They know, and we've been telling them in law enforcement, we need to secure the border. More and more people are coming through. We're having problems in our communities. More drugs are flowing in. Parents are going to wake their kids up for work because they're not waking up, and they aren't getting up because they're dying of overdoses at home.
Right.
And this is happening all over the United States. And so Congress knows it. We've testified. I've testified twice before the Judiciary Committee and told them, listen, you need to deal with this issue. You can't keep, you were here, you're brought here, you're paid by the American people to do the people's work. And what you've done is they've turned they turned the federal branch, legislative branch of the United States government into a political playground. And people outside the Capitol Dome, in the neighborhoods surrounding there and beyond, are saying, hey, I need some help over here. And they don't
got time for it.
They don't have time for it. They're more interested in how can I make this party
look bad,
worse to the immigrant community so we get more people coming in.
Right. And then supposedly the Republicans want them, the rich people want them because they're cheap labor. And the Democrats want them because they're more votes.
Right. And so, but in the end, it goes to your simple point. What they want, not what the people want.
Right.
And therein lies the whole problem. Everything, whenever they take action, the viewers should take a good hard look and say, why are they taking action now? They said there was no crisis on the border for how many months?
Yeah.
We knew it. ICE was testifying. Border Patrol was testifying. Sheriffs were testifying, telling them for years. They knew it. They will look the American people in the eye and lie about it and just say there's no crisis. They know there's a crisis. They knew those places were overcrowded. And I was down there when President Obama was in office, his administration. And I was at that McAllen station where they're claiming that people are being abused and
Right,
laying on
right.
the floors and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
They were laying on the floors there. The pens that they're talking about, not cages, they're pens like you'd see around a basketball court.
Right. Yeah.
They're like chain link barriers.
Oh, you know what I
So you
love?
can see through.
You know what I didn't love. I hated actually the Cortez woman from
Oh, yeah.
New York
Yeah.
saying that they got them drinking out of the toilets when in fact it's a bubbler here and then below the bubbler is a toilet.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a unit.
Yeah. And you know what? Even there were a whole bunch of pastors that were in there from churches that walked through there and said that's just not true. These people are being treated very humanely. I was there. These Border Patrol agents are taking care of little babies. They're taking care of young kids. You know, mothers are sick. They have 15, just in the McAllen station, on average, every day they have 15 hospital runs, which means agents have to be at the hospital with 15 people who are being treated inside the hospitals. The other thing that's important to know, for example, in Colorado, at the border, one of the border stations there. So we talk about that 20-day rule for families, right? So you and I each bring a child in.
Right.
We get sent to Aurora in Colorado, that station, and we're there. And 10 days into our stay, all of a sudden there's an outbreak of measles or chickenpox.
Right.
Immediately, the whole place is going into quarantine, all of us. They're going to start us on a 25-day regimen of medication to deal with it. The problem is, we only have 10 more days left. So they're going to give us the first 10 days.
Right.
They're going to release us out into the neighborhoods of the United
After
States.
10 days.
After 10 days.
With the measles.
Give us the other 15 days of medication with instructions and
Yeah,
expect that we're going to take it.
Right.
We have nowhere to go.
Right.
We have no source of support.
No income.
No income. And we're going to be worried about taking the 15 days of medication? I don't think so. You'd be lucky if they can remember to keep it wherever they have it.
Right.
So this is, what's really sad about all this is that we're where we are right now in the United States because the people who promised to take care of our interests
Right.
are taking care of their own interests, and that's all about their politics.
Exactly.
And what they're doing to the sheriffs is, we made a promise to the people we'd keep them safe. They're undermining our mission and our ability to do it.
Just by virtue of what you said, the gangs in here.
The gangs, now you have elected officials. We saw them in Rhode Island on these sanctuary cities.
We got one right here in Providence.
Yeah. How does any elected official, Bob, keep a straight face and look at the people and say that they should be allowed, as elected officials, to pick and choose who has to follow the laws of the United States?
Well, I got a point right here, and I'm going to say this, and I'll probably get in trouble for this. They're taking over, the Providence school system is atrocious. They just announced they had John Hopkins come in here, and they said it's like the worst in the country, the Providence school system. And part of that is because there are so many illegals in the city, and they don't speak English. I can remember even when I was in junior high school back in forever, where you got somebody from another country in that class that doesn't speak English, and say you're in math, you're in a math class,
Sure.
and you're learning algebra, which can be tough enough for an 8th grader, 7th grader, and the teacher's going through the class and everything, the formulas and whatever, and you're getting it, and you finally got it. Then all of a sudden you got to go on to the next page and get ready to, no comprende, I don't understand. Now they got to stop and do it all over again. So while you and I joking around, fooling around, going to the lab, whatever, running out of school, this kid catches up. And it's not the kid's fault.
Right, it's not the child's fault. But here's the problem. People
Now fail to school with that.
But people would say to you, and you said this, you preempted your comment with this. I'll probably get in trouble for saying this. But the truth of the matter is, that's the culture where we are right now. I'm the son of an immigrant.
Me too.
I have 12 brothers and sisters. My father came here, and when my father walked down the street, he didn't have to look over his shoulder to see if anybody was going to find out he wasn't supposed to be here. And what example would he be setting for us? So this isn't about being anti-immigrant. This is about the fact that we are a country of
rules and laws.
Rules and laws. And in order to create a fair, level playing field for everybody that wants to come here, you got to follow the rules.
Right.
You can't go to a movie theater and expect that, hey, you're going to wait 2 hours in line to see this movie you've been waiting to see forever.
Right. Almost
the lights moved
there.
up, you're almost there, and all of a sudden, 15, 20 people jump in front of you.
I used the analogy, similar analogy to
Yeah.
that.
So no one believes that's fair. And does that mean we're being cruel and mean to those
Right,
people
or
that
racist,
didn't want to
or
wait, or
racist.
racist, or we didn't want to wait because well those people want to see the movie. Why shouldn't they be able to go in?
Right.
Right.
Without paying.
Right. Well, that too. And so I think America's at the point now where I think most Americans have realized that at a time when things were going really well for us, 2 homes, 2 cars, whatever, and they're really good now, but over that time when it was going really well for a while, then it dropped off a bit, that people stopped paying attention to government. And all of a sudden, the people that were down there in government realized, hey, the people aren't paying attention. We can do whatever we
Right.
want. We can run away with it. And now we'll control how things are going to be. And so when I was before Congress almost 2 years ago, Congressman King asked me when I was testifying, he said, Sheriff, what should be done for these elected officials?
Now, is that King from New York? Which one is that?
No, out of Iowa. Said, what should be done with these elected officials who are creating these sanctuaries and trying to harbor or conceal people who are here illegally? I said, there's only one thing that needs to be done, Congressman.
Arrested.
Issue arrest warrants on every one of them.
That's right.
Because under
They're breaking the law.
Title 8, Section 1324 of the U.S. Code says, anyone who attempts to harbor or conceal someone they know to be in the country illegally commits a felony under federal law.
Oh, it's a felony.
It's a felony. And when I see people like the mayor of Boston, Marty Walsh, saying, you know what, not only am I not going to abide by the law or encourage these people to do it, but on top of that, I'm going to, if the president tries to make it more difficult for us to have illegal immigrants in our city, I'm going to open up my whole office for them. They can come stay in my office if they want to.
Really?
And I think the most incredible, saddest, tragic thing that's happened in the last month for all of America was when we saw Speaker Pelosi standing at a podium saying, here's what you need to do if you're illegal, if the ICE raids are coming,
Oh, God.
here's what you need to do. Don't answer the door, don't do this, don't that. This is the Speaker of the House
Right.
telling people that she's going to help them avoid the very laws she passed along with the rest of Congress.
Oh, pick and choose. That's called pick and choose. They want to pick and choose the laws they
that
support.
they passed, right? And they passed those laws. So they don't have the courage to change the laws,
Right.
but they're telling people, we have the laws, but don't abide by them. What is she doing when she does that? Number one, she
Committed a
undermines
felony.
law enforcement.
Yep.
She sends a message
Right.
that law enforcement's enforcement of the law really doesn't matter, and you don't need to pay attention to it. We're going to help you hide from them. What's even equally bad is the fact that she's also telling them to thumb their nose at a court order. These are warrants that these people have
Right.
for having been caught coming in illegally, committed a crime. Then, well, they came in illegally, and that was a crime. Then they got
They get
caught.
arrested for a
They got
crime.
got arrested for that. They got their due day in court, due process in court, like any American would.
Right.
The judge decided, nope,
No.
you don't meet the standard.
Right.
You're going
You gotta go.
need order removal.
Right.
Person refuses and says, well, you know what? I don't care what the judge says. I don't care about your law, and I don't care what this judge says. I'm going to defy that order. And now you've got Speaker Pelosi saying, yes, do that. Don't worry about it. Here's how you hide from them. Here's how you defy that judge's order. We don't need people like that in Congress. They took an oath to uphold the same laws,
Right.
actually the laws they created, that we do. If you're going to, and then you want law enforcement to say, defy your oath. Don't enforce the law. No. If you don't like the law you passed, change it.
Right. But
You're
if
a
the law's on the books,
But if the law's there, either you have the courage to change that law,
Or
but
enforce
don't
it.
tell me to defy my oath, because I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And that is a basic tenet of what all of us in law enforcement got into this job for, is to uphold that oath so
Right.
we could protect the people of this country. And shame on her being Speaker Pelosi, and all of these obstructionists who knowingly have continued day in and day out, knowing that drug problems getting worse, more and more people are dying every day, being victimized by people that they're encouraging to come into this country and prey on the American people. Shame on them.
And how do you know who's coming in the country anyway? How do you know there's not only MS-13, how do you know there's not Al-Qaeda coming in this country?
Listen.
When you don't have any accountability who's coming in this country, how do you know?
You don't. And here's the other part. Most people don't know this. But for example, in Puerto Rico, say there's 37 provinces or states within all of Puerto Rico. If you and I are of Puerto Rican descent, we can go to every one of those provinces up to 3 times in a year and get original copies at each one of those provinces. We can get up to 3 copies of our birth certificate.
I knew you were going to say that.
And so what's going on?
They're selling them.
Oh, big time. The Dominican cartels know this. So what happens? So say you're part of the cartel. You come to me.
Yeah.
I've got a whole bunch. I got 200 and some odd birth certificates of my own, originals.
Right.
Hey, Bob, $500, you get this. But don't go to Florida because I already sold one of my other ones to somebody that's in Florida. So you got to go to New York or one of the other states.
Right.
So you don't get crossed over.
Because it's the same name.
Same name.
Yeah.
And same social, same. All.
Sure.
So what's happening?
Because they're American citizens, folks.
Right.
Puerto Ricans.
Right, and it's easier once you get that. It's easy to get the driver's license, get all this stuff. So what happens is, because of this, not just Puerto Rico, but
And
Puerto
by the way,
Rico's
it's
biggest
also
problem.
easy to go from Dominican Republic to Puerto Rico.
That's right.
I've done it, yes.
Right, but it's the Dominican cartels that are the problem, that are really pushing these things out, right?
Yep.
So what happens is, and Puerto Rico's not the only problem. There are other countries too that are creating these phony IDs, these replacement IDs. But so identity fraud in this country is out of control.
Right.
We have thousands of imposters in our jails all over the United States. I just assigned one of my people to do just that.
Wow.
Query our databases every day and see if we can't find in the first 2 weeks, we found a guy with 6 different IDs that was in our place. We never would have known if we hadn't done the query.
Right.
But I'm like, there's thousands of them in jails all over the United States. And most sheriffs, people come in, they give you an ID, you process them, boom, 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 and that's it, unless something popped on a computer. But you have to go and take a couple of steps to find out. So now we're going after it, and we're finding out. So New Hampshire's done a good job. They've trained their Department of Motor Vehicle people.
Yep.
They know what to look for. And they look for these different things in fraudulent IDs. And if they catch somebody that appears to have a fraudulent ID, they get a hold of the authorities before that person gets off the property. Whereas,
And what happens to that person?
they'll be arrested.
Yep. And does he get a court date?
It's a felony to have a fraudulent ID.
Oh, so he's going to jail.
Well, they'll get their due date in court, but yeah, they're going to be arrested.
This morning on the news, they were talking about how these young children, as young as 2 years old, are in detention centers down there in Texas and Arizona, whatever, and they're with no parents.
Yeah.
And they have to, what do they got to do with them?
Well, that's a whole other problem. I mean, the federal government's having to pay these social service agencies millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to care for them.
Till they're 18. That's what they were saying.
Yeah, it's out of control. And look, there's nothing inhumane about having sovereignty in your nation, and particularly in the United States, where we're the most generous country in the world. We allow more legal immigrants in than any other nation in the world. And so for these people who are pro-illegal, they somehow think that it's a way for them, I guess, to feel like they're really helping people. But they're hurting these people because they're being abused along the way. Some aren't making it. They left a young kid to die because the kid couldn't keep up. They rape these kids. The mothers are giving their daughters birth control pills before they hand them off.
Exactly.
To these cartels for the trek to the border. I mean, what's humane about that? And then the child gets here, has no support, no family support, shipped off to some community into some foster care home, and thinks that they're going to have some friends and family in the school, and all they are, they become the brunt of all the jokes and the bullies. And then they go home after school on the weekend, and guess who the weakest link in the neighborhood is for the gangbangers? She is.
So, yeah, exactly.
How are you helping that child? What leg up is that child getting? And by the way, if you care so much, how do you look past the kids in Chicago?
You just took it off me. I was going to say that.
You look like you had that Chicago.
I had
look in
the
your face,
Chicago thing.
Yeah, you did.
Last weekend, there were 16 shootings in Chicago.
Yeah, well, that was probably a slow night.
Yeah.
a slow weekend.
Oh, I'm no 16 deaths. I'm sorry,
Deaths.
16
Okay,
murders.
deaths,
16
yeah.
murders.
Yeah.
There were probably 80 shootings.
Yeah.
But that's gangs. That's gang related.
Yeah, and
Cartel related.
Where are
some of it.
we? Where are we?
Why aren't we protecting them instead
Right.
of protecting the kids that are coming from El Salvador and Nicaragua and whatever?
Right. I mean, look, we can't just have open borders and let people just flood into this country. Take, for example, March, the month of March. Over 100,000 people that they caught now. That's
132,000
Yeah,
was
came
marked.
in illegally.
That's only the ones they caught.
Yeah, they caught. So, the fourth largest city in Massachusetts, I think New Bedford's still the fourth largest city, fourth or fifth, is less than 100,000 people. Now, we're only talking 1 month of
That's the
numbers
population
coming
of,
through.
of
It's more than the population of New Bedford, right?
in 1 month.
In 1 month. How many, now we got 11 more months to go. How many cities like New Bedford are sitting idle with hospitals, supermarkets, jobs, grocery stores, homes that are just waiting to be occupied by people rolling in that don't even belong here, right? That's an entire city.
Right.
So the question is, and the answer is none. So that means which street are they coming to in your neighborhood?
Yeah.
Because that's where they're coming.
Yeah, right.
And
Yeah,
so,
oh yeah.
So when I hear
who's
people,
robbing who?
yeah, and you know, I mentioned about the statistics in the Pew Research report about Massachusetts having the highest migration over 10 years of illegal immigrants. We also are the second most common place in the United States to find fentanyl. And we have the fifth highest heroin overdose rate in the United States. Now, we're 2,500 miles from the border.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
2,500 miles from the border. So when I hear people say, you know, oh, it's not a problem, it's not a crisis, really? Well,
How much are they spending in Massachusetts for the illegals?
I think we're 1.8 billion, I believe.
Wow.
I believe it's 1.8 billion. I could be wrong. It could be 2.
Oh, it's probably
0.3 or
higher
something.
because
It could
I
be.
know I had somebody on the show a couple weeks ago, and he said in Rhode Island we spend over $200 million on illegals a year.
And the question becomes, what if you weren't spending those $200 million,
Right.
if that's available
Right.
just to help people come in here illegally, and they're not here, where would that $200 million be going?
Well, you could fix your roads, number
Schools?
one, schools.
Updates for schools?
Yeah.
Maybe some sports activities.
$200 million,
How about
you could
sports
build a
activities for kids to
Right.
partake in, where parents don't have to pay extra money to get them in sports after school. How about that? The way it used to be. You see, what's happening is the things that we used to enjoy as part of a government service of using our money to support
Right.
our families
Right.
and our kids to keep them away from the street corners and things. Well, those things are all washed up because we have people coming in here illegally, and there's elected officials that think, well, you know, we have to take care of all of them. You know, and so you're just going to have to give that up for your kids. And by the way, you need to dump in some more money because we got more people coming in.
And the more people you got coming in, the more drugs you got coming in, and
Drugs
the more
and
problems and the
problems.
more possibility your kids are going to get hooked up on the drugs.
The medical stuff. I mean, I think one of the hospitals, I think it's in Attleboro, not Attleboro, excuse me, up near Milford, has never had any person who was there illegally paying for their medical services when they came to the hospital. So, and this is, you know, when you think of just the illnesses alone, now they're talking about Ebola, right, from Africa.
Right.
They just had about 125 Africans they caught trying to get through the southern border, right?
Coming through the southern border?
Southern
Really?
border. Oh, yeah. I don't have
See, I don't hear that.
Oh, Albania. The Albanians are up 436% coming across the Rio Grande Valley into.
Cut it out. I have never heard anything like
Yep.
that. It's always about the Central American people.
Pakistan's up like I think 102% or some. I think it's somewhere around 102%, somewhere around there. And the number of people coming through from these countries is unbelievable. They caught a known terrorist coming through the southern border recently. A known terrorist.
Well, see, I've said that. I've said that how could you not have them come through when the border is so porous?
But if you and I ran a terrorist organization, are we going to try to go through JFK Airport or Boston Airport and take a chance to get caught? Or are we just going to do when they know that, hey, listen, they're welcoming all these people,
Right.
and we'll just meld in with them, and we'll just sneak in like everybody else.
Yep.
And then they say, oh, we don't need a wall. Don't need a wall? Really?
I mean, that's the best one.
Really?
That's the best one, saying we don't, let's take it down. No
Yeah.
borders, no borders at all.
Yeah, I mean, I was using the example, go to Green Airport. Take down all the walls and tell people just go to the gates and make sure you check in at the checkpoints with security,
Right.
Just walk through the things. But there's no walls
Right.
to direct you there. You just go there and we're going to trust that you're going to do it.
No, actually, no security either, because they don't have security
Well, they do at the border at the checkpoints.
at the checkpoint.
So
yeah.
if we say, so the analogy is, go to Green Airport, there's checkpoints you have to go through the metal detectors and all
Right,
that.
right.
When you get your ticket, go to those checkpoints, but there's no walls to channel you there.
Oh, right.
Right?
Yeah, so you
So
just go hop on the
we
plane.
just trust that you're all going to wait in line and do it.
Right.
Well, that's how absurd this is. It's the same thing at the border. You got miles and miles and miles of open border.
Isn't there an area in Arizona that's over 500 or 600 miles? Actually, I think it's 700 miles. Has nothing.
Yeah.
Has no wall, no fence, no nothing.
Yeah, and I've been there. I've been down to El Paso on the border. They had looked like out of an old Western movie. It had a little sort of weathered post.
It said U.S. and Mexico on it, right?
No, it was just a little. It was 3 strands of barbed wire. 2 of the strands were broken, and there was one little strand that was kind of just sagging, and that was the border wall. I walked right up to the Rio Grande River. It was dry.
Right.
Which
Which means there's no problem getting across it.
Oh, not at all. Well, you know what they're doing now. Now what they do is, on the Rio Grande, particularly up near McAllen, that area.
The rafts.
They'll take a raft.
Yeah.
They'll put a truck or a car in it full of drugs. They send the raft across. The keys are in the truck. They send it across. The guys on the other side grab the truck and take it off to where they're going with the drugs.
Really?
Really. Oh yeah.
Wow.
And here's another thing that a lot of people don't know. I was at a ranch, a cattle ranch in Starr County, and on the 2 neighboring counties, I was at this ranch, and the rancher is a 5th generation rancher.
Texan.
Rancher, yeah. Cattle ranch, right on the border, on the Rio Grande. He's had to shut down his cattle operation because he's had to have his cattle quarantined on 9 different occasions. And every time they're quarantined, it's 9 months. And the reason is because on the other side of the Rio Grande, which is not very wide,
Right.
the cartels have taken over those ranches there. Ranchers just gave them up. They were like, they didn't want the problems, the trouble. So the cattle over there just wander. They
Back
have
and
fever
forth?
tick. They have fever tick.
Right.
They come across here, they infect the cows here, and 50% of the ranchers on both sides of Starr County have had to shut down their operations. Their livelihoods for generations that they've had these ranches. We were meeting we were down in the National Sheriff's Conference recently, and we were in our border committee meeting, and there were some ranchers there. And a woman said, you know what? I like to go out for a walk every morning, but I'm always petrified. I have to take my gun with me, and I'm always petrified what's going to happen because these people wander right up into our property. And they killed one of the ranchers in their area, shot and killed the rancher. I mean, the same with this rancher where I was in Starr County. He was saying, you know, they come up, they threaten our workers. They just wander right onto our ranches. And so, you know, we owe it to these people, 5th generation. We as Americans owe it to these hardworking ranchers who've been, you know, they're working, they get their cattle, trying to beef them up to 450 pounds before they send them off to Omaha to be grained up to a higher thing. And they can't because all the weight they gained, they lost because they were quarantined. And so what about them? What about all these do-gooders? What do you just look past them and their families and what they're doing for America to provide, you know, the products that we need for food, sustenance, and all of that? You just say, too bad. We think that the people that are on the other side of the border should be able to come in here, and so what if it shuts down your operation? You know, so what if drugs are pouring into your neighborhood? You know, we're better than that as Americans.
We should be.
Well, we owe it. Look, we owe it to those farmers. We owe it to every American together to take care of one another and to continue to encourage immigration. We are all children.
It's not about immigration. It's about legal versus illegal.
Exactly. And so while
It's about accountability. It's about knowing who's coming across the border. Now you're telling me about Pakistanis and
Sure.
and Albanians and
Oh, yeah.
whatever else.
Oh, yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. And
They don't talk about it. I've never heard that on TV.
And
Never
you
seen
won't
it on
hear
TV.
And you won't hear it. And that's why it's so important. Like the shows you do, Bob, are so important because people get a chance to really hear the truth. You know, it's not about, we're not filtering. Sheriffs don't sit there and decide, hey, I'm going to help you out, but I want to know first, are you Republican or Democrat? Because if you're a Democrat or you're a Republican and I'm the other party, I'm not helping you. Who would ever think to do that? None of us. But yet Congress does that every day. So depending on, you're going to get whatever you might think you need, but it may be filtered down and more likely or not may end up giving you almost nothing because before I give it to you, I have to push it through my political filter and capture what I want on this side for me. And if there's anything left over for you, well, okay, then
You get the crumbs.
You're lucky.
I'll get the crumbs.
You get what's left over. So look, where are we now? How do we deal with this? The way we deal with it is we look within ourselves and take an inventory and say, okay, this is our time in history. We're at a critical point where we, our generations, have to say what will be said of us by our children and our grandchildren. When they look back in history and say, you know, my mom, my dad, my grandfather, they were in a pretty difficult time and the country was really in a bad place. And they just looked the other way and chose not to do anything about it. And they allowed it to continue to go on. And that's why we're struggling now, trying to make ends meet and live in a country that we otherwise probably would have been in a much better place and had much better opportunity. But for the fact that my mom, my dad, my grandfather, my grandmother said, you know what, doesn't matter and I don't care. And so for us, it's our time. As Americans, we can no longer allow ourselves to say, well, let Congress take care of it. Because that's not going to happen.
Well, they ain't going to do it.
No.
Just not going to do it.
And if we want them to do it, then we have to say, look, just because somebody's my representative doesn't mean necessarily that I can look past them not doing anything. If you're not going to do the job, then we're going to put people in there that will.
Right.
And we owe it to our children and our grandchildren to do that. Not to ignore it, not to say it's okay and it's somebody else's problem. Because if that's the case, then we own the decline of what otherwise we have always known to be the greatest nation in the world. And we are complicit.
What do they call the group? I know there's a group, and I know there's a name for them, of Mexicans that think that they still should be able to take back Texas and California. There was a group that was around years ago.
I'm not familiar. You know, I'm not a big one for rewriting history.
There was a group a long time ago, because we took that from Mexico.
Yeah.
Right? The Americans did.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, I think, look, I often say, when they were starting this movement of taking down statues, and I said, you know, the next thing you know, they'd be saying, okay, Martin Luther King didn't believe in homosexuality, right? So
he didn't?
No. So would they? So they're going to take that statue down? Are they going to try to, you know, go back in history and say? And I tell people, if you've ever seen that statue in Washington, it's a monumental statue. It's a beautiful statue of a monumental man who moved this entire nation, and he's situated looking directly across at the Jefferson Memorial.
Right. Yep.
And so, rather than rip the statue down, see that placement and that moment that you can explain in history to your kids or your grandkids. That you see that building across the way there, that Jefferson Memorial? Back in their day, they thought it was okay to own people of color.
Right.
It was okay. They thought it was all right. And this man, this giant of a man, moved an entire nation to understand that that isn't okay. That we're all created equal under God. And for all of us, that there should be no separation. You know, we have the same red blood. We may have a different pigment in our skin, but we're all Americans and we're all people, you know? And so why would you want to destroy that opportunity to reinforce probably one of the most important lessons in our history by tearing down that statue? particularly the
Right.
way it's situated looking at that Jefferson Memorial. So when I hear about, trying to sort of take Texas back and take this back and all of that, look, we can go back.
Oh, look what they've done in the South with the Confederate flags,
Oh, sure. Oh, sure.
Confederate statues. That's where I thought you were going with that too.
But you know what's happening, Bob? What I really like is to see is that I forget which state it was where they were going to stop the Pledge of Allegiance before the city council meeting,
Right.
and the public rose up and said, "No, you're not. We're not going to not recite our Pledge of Allegiance here in this government building," and they won, and they pushed back, and that's what we have to do with Congress. The same thing that group did. You remember the saying? There's a saying that the most important, most critical things that happened in this nation, that moved this nation, started with one or a small group of people.
Right. Right.
And what happened?
Your voice counts. That's what the old adage is.
And that example, out in wherever it was, in Michigan or wherever, of that community coming together on a principle and a value that mattered to them, and saying, "No, you're not going to take that from us. This is about our nation. This is about our allegiance to our country, and we aren't going to allow that." And they didn't, and they won. And so I don't know how long those people that are in office are going to remain there after doing something like that.
Right.
But it goes to show you that the power really is
With the people.
if we choose to use it.
Right. Right.
And therein lies our problem right now.
Well,
We
people
aren't.
don't have the time in their mind. They don't have the time to deal with it. Take care of a particular
But if you think
problem.
about the problems and the time wasted listening to these back and forth and all of that, how much time does it take to fix something that never had to be broken, right? And if you kept something in good working order as opposed to just ignoring it, you're probably going to have a lot more time to enjoy whatever that
Right.
thing is that you're working with, and as opposed to just sort of letting it fall apart and then thinking, okay, now I got to fix it, but then it just seems to be such a monumental task that you get more and more frustrated. And we have to get back to that. We have to get back to realizing that this is our nation, this is our country, and every one of us has an equal investment in carrying forward the legacy of our founders and what they gave to us, not destroying it and letting it fall apart. And that's what's been going on.
Oh, it sure has. Somebody had a question for me, for you.
Is it a trick question?
No, it's a real question.
Oh, okay.
What happens, why is it that when an illegal alien, and they usually don't arrest them unless they've caused a problem or been involved in a crime or whatever, right? At least around here. And so they go to court, and why is it that the judge gives them a ticket to come back or summons to come back at a later date? Why don't they just send them back to their country?
Well, first of all, they don't have enough judges on the border to handle the magnitude of people coming across, so they can't. So when they get caught, they just don't have the facilities. I had a guy, when the former governor was in Deval Patrick, he was fighting me on my efforts to get secure communities from Massachusetts. And there was an article in the Boston Herald about this, our different positions on it. And I got a call one day.
Yeah,
and it was so unusual. And so I got a call one day out of the blue from a border agent in San Diego. He said, "Sheriff, you don't know me. I'm a border agent out here in San Diego. And the reason I'm calling you, I saw this article in the Boston Herald today, and I just want you to know, at our checkpoint out here, we bring in, on average, 20 people a day we arrest for coming over illegally. We don't have the capacity or the facility to house them.
Right.
So we have to take them to court. They get a summons, and they're told to appear. And needless to say, they don't come back for court.
Right.
But that's not why I'm calling you. The reason I'm calling you is because out here in San Diego, the word is, go to Massachusetts. That's the word out here in San Diego. So because they can't hold them there, there's no capacity. You'd have to build, 100,000 people coming in. How long are you going to be able to hold them?
Right.
Just 1 month.
And how long it's only going to be 100,000?
Right.
It's going to be a
Think
million
about
before
the
you
staff,
know it.
The staff you need. You think the food, the building,
The medicine.
air conditioning, all this stuff. The medicines, all that stuff. Vehicles. So they don't have the capacity to hold these people. So the only way to deal with that is make sure they don't get in.
Right. And it doesn't have to be a wall. That was a mistake he made.
It's
it got to be a barrier of some
a
kind.
barrier. But and Israel, look, nobody's better at border security than the Israelis.
Oh, by the way, that's why I jokingly have said this, that because I agree with that wholeheartedly. With all the stuff going on with them in the Middle East, why not give them the same amount of land they have in the Middle East, right? Israel is the country, right? Which only started in 1948 anyway. Give them the same amount of land along the Mexican-American border, and you take care of that.
Because it won't happen.
No, what I'm saying is let them move out of Israel and bring them all over here. Of course, it wouldn't happen. Of course.
Oh, the Israelis. Oh,
Yeah.
let the Israelis. Oh,
Yeah. Let the Israelis take over the Southwest. If it's 20 miles from the border, the length of the entire border, that's the equivalent of the land mass they have in Israel, for them to leave Israel, which would eliminate the problem with the Arabs and the.
Yeah, but it's not. But
It
but
wouldn't happen, obviously.
Right,
of
and
course
it's their
it wouldn't
homeland.
happen.
It's their homeland.
It's their homeland,
Going
of course.
back in
It's a
history into
it's
the
a holy
biblical-
land.
Yeah, back to biblical days. So yeah.
But my point is, what you were going to say is about that they're so effective at controlling
Well, yeah.
the border.
If you had them on our border, believe me, I've been to all three of those borders in Israel, and they know exactly what they're doing, and they're very sophisticated. It isn't just a barrier. They've got seismic sensors. They've got balloons that float in the air with all kinds of technology. We do too now. We have I think there's 4 or 5 blimps now down there in Texas.
Yeah, but what good is it if you don't have enough people to stop them from coming across the border?
Well, yeah. Well, at least it helps a little bit. You can't just use those, but we brought those in from Afghanistan, and we have those just hovering there, and they will pick up. They've got sophisticated cameras and all that, and they can make it easier for the Border Patrol to get to these big groups faster than if they otherwise just catch as catch can. So
Right.
it makes it a little more efficient, but it still doesn't solve our problem.
No, not at all.
No.
Not at all.
No, and it's so we have work to do. We have to the obstructionists down in Congress. The only elected official that is the grown-up in all of this entire debate over immigration is President Donald Trump.
I knew you were going to say that.
But it's true. You think about it. He's a problem solver. We've been down there. The sheriffs have worked with him since day one. He came in and he said it actually when he was doing his acceptance speech at the Republican convention.
Right.
When he got the nomination. And he said, I will reestablish the rule of law in the United States. And he kept his promise, like he did so many of the others.
Right.
On the economy, on veterans, on all these things. And so, all the people that, all the obstructionists, have you ever heard any of these obstructionist people in Congress give you anything other than an objection to what the president's put forward? No alternative ideas.
No, but he is his own worst enemy.
Well,
I mean, his
he's not a politician.
No.
But you know what he is? He's probably one of the best problem solvers we've ever had in the history of our country sitting in the Oval Office. He looks at a problem, he asks the experts, he's talked to us, he's talked to the border people, he's talked on immigration, for example. What do we need to do? And then he moves. He says, let's do it. Let's get it done. No is not one of the answers that I'm willing to accept. If it isn't working this way, figure it out. Let's come this other way, but we're going to make it happen. And he's made it happen. The only things that he hasn't been able to get done, and the reason that Congress doesn't want it done, is because they haven't wanted it done for 20 years, is solving this immigration problem. That's the truth of it all. So whether you like the way the president says certain things or not,
He would be a great president if he shut his mouth at sometimes.
well, yeah.
I shouldn't say shut his mouth. Just stayed away from texting.
Well, you know what?
Because he pisses people off in plain English.
But here's the problem. He's pissing the media off because he is texting. And the media has always, for as far back as I can
I knew you were
remember,
going to say they
controlled
what
the
was
message
said.
was going to be and how it was going to be done.
Right.
They have
He's bypassing them.
He's bypassing.
I understand that.
If they
I do
would,
understand
if they
that.
would be fair, if they would celebrate and report, imagine if they reported on all the positive things that that have happened in the country since the president's been there on the stock market, jobs, all these things. How our spirit in America would be lifted if all the media were honest and fair about reporting it, but they're not.
Right.
From day one, it was, we're going to get you, we're going to get you, we're going to get you,
Right.
and we don't like you. We're going to do everything we can to obstruct you, and we're going to keep throwing things at you so that those things are going to be sort of muffled, and people won't see all the things that you're doing by us constantly just making things up as we go along to make it a confrontational thing. And if you were doing that to me, I'd be fighting back too.
Right.
And the thing you have to watch with President Trump is, he doesn't hit you first. But if
He's a counterpuncher.
If you
no
come
doubt
after
about
him,
it. Yeah, he's a
then you're going to
counterpuncher.
get more than what you probably delivered.
Right.
And you deserve it.
Right.
Right? Don't get into the fight unless you're in to win.
Well, by the way, that was always my way. That's how I survived growing
I
up
knew
as
that.
a kid.
That's why I brought
I
it
was
up.
5-1. I always had I had a 5-1 rule. You do something to me, I'm going to do it to you 5 times worse.
Yeah.
If you're a big tough guy and can beat me up, guess what? I am going to get you 5 times some other way.
I think this is the 5th time I've been on this show. Did you?
No, we had a lot of problems with that in high school. But yeah, that's how you.
I hear you.
Yeah.
But look, I've been with the president many times, and I will tell you, the man is somebody that's just hyper focused. He's got high energy. He wants problem solved. That's all he wants. And he doesn't want to be in battles. He doesn't want to be in these arguments and fights. How many times he said, "All right, come on in, Schumer. Come on in, you guys. Come on, let's figure this thing out.
Right.
I'll deal with you. Let's cut a deal. Do what we have." He threw up these alternative deals. Nope.
So
And
you're saying they just don't want a deal.
they don't want to deal. They don't want to do anything. And they don't, not because the deal's bad for the American people, it's bad for their politics.
Right.
And so we suffer.
Well, you look at it now. Look at the politics now. They got the Democrats got 24 or 25 people running.
Yeah.
They can't even get along.
Yeah.
So even if he wasn't there, they wouldn't get along. And 2 years ago, the Republicans had 17 or 18 people. They couldn't get along.
Right. And a lot of these Democrats knew the president before he got elected. They knew him.
Exactly.
They were
Oh
friends.
yeah.
So what suddenly changed with you, and what it was, okay, you stepped into the arena.
Yep.
You're a Republican, we're Democrats,
Right.
so you know what?
You're the enemy.
The two will not meet. You're the enemy. And we're not going to let
Plus,
you.
you're not giving us any more money. Right?
Right.
That's what it amounts to.
Right. But look, as I said, we're going to get through this. I think the American people figured it out. I think they realize this whole thing on collusion and all the stuff that they keep throwing out there and saying, "Oh, we have the evidence." Suddenly, that's got quieted down. They don't talk about that anymore.
You know what I think is amazing today, and I didn't know this, that and I'm a Democrat. I grew up as a Democrat. I consider myself an independent now.
Sure.
But I grew up as a Democrat. I heard today something I didn't know is true, and they didn't deny it almost. The Republicans were talking about it today, how Hillary Clinton's people were dealing with the Russians before they claimed Trump's folks were dealing with the Russians.
The hypocrisy runs deep down in Washington.
Yes.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Yes.
And it's interesting.
And they asked they asked him today. What's his name?
Mueller?
They asked Mueller, how come you didn't charge this guy, Simmons guy?
Yeah, he said he couldn't get into it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, when all's said and done, if we're really going to talk about the issues, like for me, I got 12 brothers and sisters. 3/4 of them are Democrats. I love them all.
Right. Yeah.
We have different points of view on things, but you know what? I appreciate that because it makes me stronger, makes me look at things, and not just sort of go down this road that, hey, my idea is the way to go. And unfortunately, what's happened now in America is there's so many people who have just become so divided. If you don't agree with me, you know what? There's something wrong with you.
Right.
You're racist or
Yeah.
you're this.
Oh
or
yeah,
you're that.
that's the thing they throw at you all the time.
But we got to get back to being Americans.
Well, we got to wrap it
Americans
up.
first.
We got to wrap. It's always a pleasure seeing
Pleasure
you.
seeing you. I enjoyed it. It was great, as always.
Sheriff Tom Hodgson, Bristol County House of Corrections. I got to have you back again because we never even touched on everything I wanted to talk about. We wanted to talk about the prison. Wanted to talk about drugs in prison, period, because I often wonder how the hell they get drugs in prison.
Well, that's why I don't always give you all of the meat.
Okay.
I get a chance to come back.
Oh, I got it.
That's the whole
Okay,
idea.
all right, it'll be number 6.
I thought you would have figured that out.
6 times. All right. Folks, thanks for spending an hour with Bob. Until next time, see you.